Good morning. Welcome. All right, let's begin. Most people read Revelation 17 as a mysterious evil woman, strange imagery, terrifying beasts, and political end time events. But what if Revelation 17 is continuing the same inner pattern we've already been uncovering throughout this entire journey? What if the great harlot is not a literal woman somewhere, but a symbol of consciousness seduced by illusion, identity intoxicated by ego, and humanity building life around external validation instead of inner truth? Because throughout Revelation, we've already seen Babylon consciousness, the beast, intoxication, purification, inner judgment, collective consciousness, and the battle between illusion and awakened awareness. And now Revelation 17 takes us even deeper into how distorted systems gain influence over consciousness, how humanity becomes intoxicated by illusion, and how ego-based identity structures eventually collapse under the weight of their own emptiness. This chapter is not exposing external systems. It is exposing inner Babylon, false identity, collective unconsciousness, and the seductive nature of ego-driven living. Because Babylon is not a city out there somewhere. Babylon is any inner system built upon fear, status, performance, false fulfillment, and separation from awakened truth. And perhaps that is why Revelation uses such powerful imagery here. Because illusion is seductive, ego is seductive, external validation is seductive, power is seductive, fear-based systems are seductive. Many people can live for years appearing successful, admired, powerful outwardly, while inwardly disconnected, anxious, fragmented, and spiritually exhausted. So as we enter Revelation 17, do not read this chapter merely as external prophecy. Read it also as the unveiling of distorted consciousness, the exposure of Babylon within, and the collapse of every false structure consciousness once depended on for identity, security, and fulfillment. Because Revelation is not only showing us what must fall outwardly, it is also revealing what must dissolve inwardly for awakened consciousness to emerge fully into truth, peace, and wholeness. Revelation 17 verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. This is not a new punishment. This is a deeper explanation. Chapter 16 showed you the process. Now chapter 17 shows you the system behind it. One of the seven angels. Seven angels equals completion of the process you just went through. This means you are not starting over. You are now ready to understand what you just experienced. Talk with me, saying, Come hither. This is an invitation, not forced, but offered. Come hither means come closer. Look deeper. Don't stay at the surface. I will show you. This is key. This next phase is about seeing clearly and understanding deeply. Not just experiencing, but interpreting what you've experienced. The judgment. Judgment equals exposure, discernment, unveiling. This is not punishment. It means something is about to be fully revealed for what it is. The Great Hall. This is symbolic. Hall equals misalignment, unfaithfulness to truth. This represents living outside of your true nature, attaching to what is not aligned, and giving yourself to what is false. That's it upon many waters. Waters equals emotions, people, influences, environments. This means this misalignment is not small. It is spread across many areas of life. It influences thoughts, emotions, decisions, and identity. What this reveals: after completing the process of awakening, you are now ready to see what was actually controlling the system. The hard truth. Before this moment, you may have experienced the effects and felt the consequences, but now you will see the source. Relationship example. You've already gone through the cycle, ended the pattern, and reached it is done. Come hither, look deeper. Now you begin to ask, why was I attracted to this? Why did I stay so long? The Great Hall. This represents the version of you that accepted misalignment. The part of you that gave yourself to what wasn't true. Many waters. You see how it showed up in multiple relationships, emotional patterns, and repeated cycles. It was not just the person, it was a pattern within. In career, you've already outgrown your environment, reached clarity, and decided to move forward. Come hither. Now you look deeper. Why did I settle? Why did I stay small? The Great Hall. This represents misalignment with your true value, giving your time and energy to what did not reflect you. Many waters. You see how this pattern affected different roles, different decisions, and different stages of your career. It was not just the job, it was a pattern of misalignment. Spiritual example. You've already seen truth, released old beliefs, and grounded your understanding. Come hither. Now you go deeper. Why did I believe what I believed? Why did I depend externally? The Great Hall. This represents attachment to external systems over inner truth, giving authority to what was outside of you. Many waters. You see how this influenced your thinking, your identity, and your spiritual path. It was not just the teaching, it was a pattern of dependence. The core revelation. This verse reveals, after awakening, you are invited to see the deeper patterns of misalignment that shaped your experience, so you can fully understand and transcend them. There comes a point where it is no longer enough to say, I've moved on. You begin to ask, what was I participating in? And in that question, deeper freedom begins. You have seen the effects. Now you are being shown the cause. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Because when you see clearly, you no longer repeat unconsciously. Verse 2. with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. This is not about immorality. This is about entanglement, not physical, internal alignment with what is not true. Kings of the earth. Kings equals ruling thoughts, decision makers within you. Earth equals your conscious life. This means what governs your life, your choices, priorities, and direction. Committed fornication. Fornication equals union with what is not aligned. It means joining yourself to what contradicts your truth, living in ways that don't reflect who you really are. Inhabitants of the earth. Inhabitants equals everyday thoughts, behaviors, and reactions. This represents your daily patterns and how you actually live. Made drunk with the wine. Drunk equals unaware, influenced, not thinking clearly. Wine equals emotional influence, seductive belief. This means you are influenced by something that feels good, but clouds your clarity. Her fornication. Her equals the system of misalignment introduced in verse 1. This is not random. It is a pattern, a system, a way of being that pulls you away from truth. What this reveals, after seeing the system, now you see how it operates. It doesn't force you, it seduces you. The hard truth. Misalignment rarely feels wrong at first. It often feels good. Relationship example. You now understand the pattern behind past relationships. Fornication. This looks like staying in relationships you knew weren't right. Connecting emotionally where there was no alignment, and choosing familiarity over truth. Drunk with the wine. You were influenced by chemistry, attention, and emotional highs. So you ignored red flags, inconsistency, and lack of alignment. Kings. Even your decisions were influenced. You said, let me give them another chance. Maybe it will work. It wasn't just love. It was emotional intoxication. In career, you now see why you stayed in certain environments. Fornication. This looks like committing to roles that did not align with your value, choosing security over purpose, and attaching to what limited you. Drunk with the wine. You were influenced by comfort, stability, and external validation. So you ignored your potential, your dissatisfaction, and your inner knowing. Kings. Your decisions reflected that. You said, this is good enough. I'll just stay. It wasn't just practicality, it was attachment to comfort. Spiritual example. You now understand how you became attached to certain beliefs. Fornication. This looks like aligning with teachings that didn't fully resonate, depending on external authority and suppressing your own knowing. Drunk with the wine. You were influenced by fear, certainty, and emotional reassurance. So you ignored deeper truth, inner questioning, and clarity within. Kings. Your thinking was shaped by it. You said, this must be true. I shouldn't question this. It wasn't just belief. It was conditioned influence. The core revelation. This verse reveals how misalignment operates by influencing your emotions, clouding your clarity, and leading you into patterns that feel right but are not aligned with truth. Misalignment does not force you, it invites you softly, emotionally, convincingly, until you no longer realize you've stepped away from yourself. Be mindful of what feels good, but pulls you away from clarity. Be mindful of what comforts you, but keeps you from truth. Because not everything that feels right is aligned. Verse 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This is not abandonment. This is isolation for clarity. To truly see what has been influencing you, you must be taken away from the noise. Carried me away in the spirit. Spirit equals inner awareness, higher perception. This means you are no longer seeing from emotion, attachment, or surface level thinking. You are now seeing from elevated awareness. Into the wilderness. Wilderness equals solitude, emptiness, separation from distractions. This is a place where nothing distracts you, nothing comforts you falsely, and nothing influences your perception. It can feel like loneliness, detachment, and quietness, but it is necessary. I saw. This is key. You are now able to see clearly, not assume, not imagine, but truly perceive. A woman. Woman equals the system of attachment, the pattern of misalignment introduced earlier. This represents what you've been connected to, what has influenced your choices. Sitting upon a scarlet beast. Beast equals ego identity, conditioned patterns. Scarlet equals intensity, attraction, emotional pull. The system of misalignment is supported by your patterns and sustained by your identity. It sits on top of the beast, meaning it is empowered by what you've been conditioned to be. Full of names of blasphemy. Names equals identities, labels, beliefs. Blasphemy equals misrepresentation of truth. This means the system is filled with false identities, distorted beliefs, and misaligned definitions of truth. 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 equals completeness. 10 equals fullness of expression. This means this is not a small influence. It is a fully developed system within you. What this reveals: to fully understand misalignment, you must step away from everything that hides it. The hard truth. Clarity often comes in seasons that feel like isolation, detachment, and silence. Relationship example. You've stepped away from relationships that once defined you. Now you find yourself in a season of being alone, not entertaining distractions, and not jumping into something new. The wilderness. It feels like, why is everything so quiet? Why don't I feel connected like before? But this is not emptiness. This is clarity being formed. You see. Now you clearly see the patterns you repeated, the type of people you attracted, and how you showed up. The beast. You recognize your own patterns, your emotional triggers, and your conditioned responses. You were not just experiencing relationships, you were participating in a pattern. In career, you've stepped back from what once occupied your time. Now there may be a pause, a transition, a space where things are not fully defined, the wilderness. It feels like uncertainty, lack of direction, and quietness after constant activity. You see. Now you recognize why you stayed in certain roles, how you limited yourself, and what truly drives you. The beast. You see the identity you built around your career and the patterns that kept you there. You were not just working, you were living through a conditioned identity. Spiritual example. You stepped away from external noise, teachings, influences, and constant input. The wilderness. Now you experience silence, inward focus, and detachment from external validation. You see. You begin to understand what you believed, why you believed it, and what shaped your thinking. The beast. You recognize the identity you formed around belief and the patterns that sustained it. You were not just believing, you were identifying. The core revelation. This verse reveals the stage where you are removed from distractions so you can clearly see the system of patterns, identities, and influences that shaped your life. The wilderness is not empty. It is revealing. It removes distractions, noise, and emotional interference so you can finally see clearly, deeply, and truthfully. If your life feels quiet, if things feel stripped down, if you feel removed from what once filled your space, do not fear it. You are not being isolated, you are being shown. Because only in the wilderness can you truly see what was always there. Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. This is not about ugliness. This is about attraction. Misalignment does not appear broken. It appears beautiful, valuable, and desirable. Arrayed in purple and scarlet. Purple equals royalty, importance, status. Scarlet equals intensity, passion, attraction. This means what is misaligned often appears important, powerful, emotionally exciting. It doesn't look wrong, it looks significant. Decked with gold, precious stones, and pearls. Gold equals value. Precious stones equals rarity. Pearls equals beauty formed through pressure. Misalignment is often dressed in value, surrounded by things that seem meaningful, and presented as something worth holding on to. What this reveals: not everything that looks valuable is aligned. A golden cup in a hand. Cup equals what is being offered to you. Golden equals attractive, appealing, desirable. This represents what you are being invited to accept and what looks good on the outside. Full of abominations and filthiness. Abominations equals what is deeply misaligned. Filthiness equals what corrupts or distorts. This is the key. What looks beautiful externally contains misalignment internally. Of a fornication. Again, this is about union with what is not true. You are being offered something that looks right, feels right, but is not aligned with your truth. What this reveals: now you see not just the system, but why it was so hard to leave it. Because it didn't look wrong, it looked right. The hard truth. Misalignment often comes dressed as opportunity, love, success, and truth. Relationship example. You now look back at certain relationships and realize why you stayed. Purple and scarlet. They may have been attractive, charismatic, emotionally intense. It felt exciting, meaningful, and significant. Gold and pearls. There were things that made it seem valuable. Chemistry, shared moments, and potential. Golden cup. What was offered looked like love, connection, and commitment. But inside, there was inconsistency, misalignment, and lack of truth. It wasn't that you didn't see something good. It's that the good covered what wasn't aligned. In career, you now understand certain career choices. Purple and scarlet. The role looked prestigious, exciting, and important. Gold and pearls. It came with salary, title, and recognition. Golden cup. It offered stability, success, and validation. But inside, there was misalignment, lack of fulfillment, and disconnect from your true self. It looked like success, but it wasn't alignment. Spiritual example. You now understand why certain beliefs felt so convincing. Purple and scarlet. They appeared powerful, authoritative, and deeply meaningful. Gold and pearls. They were supported by tradition, structure, and emotional reassurance. Golden cup. They offered certainty, answers, and belonging. But inside, there may have been fear, limitation, and disconnection from inner truth. It looked like truth, but it was filtered through illusion. The core revelation. This verse reveals misalignment often appears beautiful, valuable, and desirable, making it easy to accept what is not truly aligned. The greatest deceptions are not the ones that look wrong. They are the ones that look right until you see clearly. Be mindful of what attracts you. Be mindful of what feels valuable. Be mindful of what appears perfect, because not everything that shines is aligned. Verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. This is not a new system. This is the exposure of the root. Everything you have been shown now receives a name. Upon her forehead was a name written. Forehead equals mind, identity, perception. This system operates at the level of how you think, how you see, and how you interpret reality. It's not just behavior, it's mindset. Mystery. Mystery equals hidden, not easily recognized. This means this system was not obvious, not easily detected, operating beneath awareness. You were in it without fully realizing it. Babylon the Great. Babylon equals confusion, mixture, illusion. This represents a state where truth and falsehood are mixed, where things appear real but are distorted. It is great because it is widespread, deeply rooted, and highly influential. The mother of harlots. Mother equals source or origin. Harlot equals repeated misalignment. This is key. This system, It's not just one pattern. It is the source of many patterns. It gives birth to repeated cycles, repeated choices, repeated misalignment. Abominations of the earth. Abominations equals what is deeply misaligned. Earth equals your lived experience. This means everything that felt off, misaligned, and confusing came from this root system. What this reveals. Now you are not just seeing patterns, you are seeing where they came from. The hard truth. It was never just that one relationship, that one job, that one belief. It was a system within you. Relationship example. You now understand why certain patterns kept repeating. The forehead mindset. It was not just the people, it was how you saw relationships. Mystery. You didn't realize it at the time. You thought it was love. You thought it was connection. Babylon. But it was confusion between love and attachment, mixing truth with illusion. Mother of patterns. This mindset created repeated relationship cycles, similar outcomes with different people. It wasn't just them. It was a pattern you carried. In career, you now see why you kept choosing similar paths. The forehead. It was rooted in how you saw yourself and how you valued your potential. Mystery. You didn't recognize it. It felt normal. It felt logical. Babylon. But it was confusion between security and alignment, mixing comfort with purpose. Mother of patterns. This created repeated career choices, similar limitations in different environments. It wasn't just the job, it was the mindset behind the choices. Spiritual example. You now understand why certain beliefs shaped your thinking. The forehead. It was in your perception, interpretation, and understanding. Mystery. You didn't question it. It felt like truth. It was presented as truth. Babylon. But it was mixture of truth and fear. Mixture of clarity and distortion. Mother of patterns. This produced repeated belief systems and repeated ways of thinking. It wasn't just what you believed. It was the system that shaped your belief. The core revelation. This verse reveals the root system of confusion and misalignment that gives birth to repeated patterns across every area of your life. There is a moment where everything becomes clear. Not just what happened, but why it kept happening. When you see the root, you no longer chase the branches. When you understand the system, you no longer repeat the pattern because now the mystery is no longer hidden. Verse 6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. This is not about violence. This is about realization. You are now seeing how much of your true self was suppressed. Drunken with the blood. Drunken equals fully consumed, influenced, saturated. Blood equals life, truth, essence. This means the system of misalignment has been sustained by suppressing truth and fooled by ignoring your inner knowing. Of the saints. Saint equals your aligned self, your higher awareness. This represents the parts of you that knew better, the moments of clarity you had but didn't follow. And the martyrs of Jesus. Martyrs equals sacrificed truth, suppressed identity. Jesus equals truth within, divine awareness. It means your inner truth was often silenced. Your deeper knowing was ignored. Your authentic self was sacrificed to maintain comfort, familiarity, and external validation. When I saw her, this is the moment of full awareness and undeniable clarity. You now see the system clearly. I wondered with great admiration. Admiration here is not approval, it is astonishment. You are shocked by how deep it went, how powerful the influence was, and how long it operated unnoticed. What this reveals. This is the moment where you realize it wasn't surface level, it was deeply rooted. The hard truth. You begin to see how many times you ignored yourself, how often you silenced your truth, and how deeply you were influenced. Relationship example. You now look back at relationship patterns. Drunken. You were fully immersed, emotionally invested, attached, and influenced by the connection. Blood of the saints. You remember moments where you knew something wasn't right. You felt misalignment, but you stayed. Martyrs. You sacrificed your boundaries, your standards, and your truth to maintain the relationship, the connection, and the emotional comfort. Admiration. Now you look back and think, wow, I can't believe I stayed that long. I can't believe I ignored all of that. You were not weak, you were deeply influenced. In career, you now reflect on your career journey. Drunken, you were committed, invested, and caught in the system. Saints, you had moments where you knew you were meant for more. You felt misalignment, but you stayed. The martyrs, you sacrificed your potential, your growth, your authentic direction for stability, comfort, and validation. Admiration, now you see it clearly. I can't believe I settled for that. I knew better. It wasn't just a job, it was a system that shaped your choices. Spiritual example. You now reflect on your spiritual journey. Drunken, you were fully immersed in belief systems, deeply influenced by teachings. Saints, there were moments where you questioned. You sensed deeper truth, but you ignored it. Martyrs, you sacrificed your inner knowing and your personal understanding to maintain structure, belonging, and certainty. Admiration, now you look back and realize, wow, I was deeply in it. I didn't see it at all. You were not blind, you were conditioned. The core revelation. This verse reveals the moment you fully realize how deeply your true self was suppressed by patterns, conditioning, and misalignment, and how powerful that system was. There is a stage in awakening where you don't just see the truth. You see how much you ignored it. And it can feel shocking, but it is also freeing. Do not judge yourself for what you now see clearly. Because awareness does not come all at once, it unfolds. And now that you see, you are no longer under it. Verse 7. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carried her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns. This is not just revelation. This is interpretation. You've seen it. Now you are about to understand it. Why did you marvel? Marvel equals shock, amazement, disbelief. This refers to a previous moment where you realize how deep the patterns went, how much was hidden, and how powerful the influence was. The question is, why are you surprised? I will tell you the mystery. Mystery equals what was hidden but is now revealed. You are moving from seeing patterns, feeling the impact, to understanding the structure behind it all. Of the woman. The woman equals the system of misalignment you've been shown. Now you will understand how it's formed, how it operated, why it had power. And of the beast that carried her. Beast equals your conditioned identity and ego patterns. Carried equals supports, sustains, gives power to. This is key. The system, the woman, didn't operate on its own. It was supported by your identity and patterns. 7 heads and 10 horns. As before, 7 equals complete system, 10 equals full expression. This means this wasn't random behavior. It was a fully structured pattern within you. What this reveals, you are now moving from I see what happened to I understand why it happened. The hard truth. What you experienced was not accidental, it was structured. Relationship example. You've already seen the patterns, the repeated cycles, and the misalignment. Why did you marvel? You may have thought, why did this keep happening to me? I will tell you the mystery. Now you understand, it wasn't just the people, the woman. The system was your pattern of attachment, your tolerance of misalignment, and your interpretation of love. The beast. And what sustained it was your identity, your emotional conditioning, and your learned behaviors. It wasn't just them. It was the pattern you carried that allowed it. In career, you've already seen repeated career patterns, similar environments, and similar frustrations. Why did you marvel? You may have wondered, why do I keep ending up here? The mystery revealed. Now you understand, it wasn't just the job market, the woman. The system was your perception of your value, your definition of success, and your tolerance for misalignment. The beast. And what carried it was your identity, your beliefs about yourself, and your comfort zone. It wasn't just the environment, it was the identity you operated from within it. Spiritual example. You've already seen the beliefs, the influence, and the confusion. Why did you marvel? You may have thought, how did I believe all of that? The mystery revealed. Now you understand, it wasn't just the teachings, the woman. The system was the mixture of truth and distortion, the reliance on external authority, the beast. And what sustained it was your identity, your need for certainty, your conditioning. It wasn't just what you were taught, it was how you were positioned to receive it. The core revelation. This verse reveals the understanding of how the system of alignment operated and how your own identity and patterns gave it power. Awareness is powerful, but understanding is freeing. Because once you understand the system, you no longer fall back into it unconsciously. You are not just someone who experiences patterns. You are now someone who understands them. And once you understand, you are no longer controlled by them. Verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. This is not about something new. This is about something that keeps coming back. A pattern you thought was gone appears again. The beast. Beast equals conditioned identity, old patterns. This means you had it before. You moved past it. It is no longer active. At least that's what it looks like. Shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Bottomless pit equals deep subconscious, unresolved patterns. Even when something seems gone, if it's not fully understood, it can rise again. Go into perdition. Perdition equals destruction and dissolution. This means the pattern is not meant to stay. It is meant to be seen and dissolved completely. They that dwell on the earth shall wonder. Wonder equals confusion, amazement. This represents, I thought I was past this. Why is this showing up again? Was and is not and yet is. This is the key. It was active. It disappeared, but it still exists in some form until it is fully understood, integrated, and released. What this reveals: growth is not always linear. Sometimes what you've outgrown appears again, not to pull you back, but to confirm that you've truly moved forward. The hard truth: just because something is gone doesn't mean it's fully resolved. Relationship example: you've already left the relationship, healed, moved on. The beast was and is not. You believe, I'm done with that pattern. Ascends again. Then suddenly, you feel a familiar emotion. You are drawn to a similar type of person. The past reaches out again. You wonder, why is this coming back? The truth: it's not returning to trap you. It's returning to reveal if it still has power. This is your chance to respond differently. In career, you've outgrown a certain mindset. Move past limiting beliefs. Was and is not. You think, I'm no longer that version of myself. Ascends again. Then doubt returns. Fear resurfaces. Old opportunities reappear. You wonder, I thought I was past this. The truth: it's not regression, it's confirmation. You now get to choose from your old self or your new self. Spiritual example: you've seen deeper truth. Move beyond certain beliefs. Was and is not. You think, I've outgrown that understanding. Ascends again. Then old fears resurface. Old teachings echo in your mind. Doubt tries to creep in. You wonder, why am I thinking like this again? The truth: it's not a step back. It's a final test of clarity. You are being shown that it no longer has power unless you give it power. The core revelation: this verse reveals patterns that seem gone may reappear, not to trap you, but to confirm whether they still have influence over you. Sometimes the past returns, not because it belongs in your future, but because it needs to be fully released. When something reappears, don't panic. Don't assume you've gone backward. Pause, observe, and ask, does this still have power over me? Because if you can see it clearly, you are no longer controlled by it. Verse 9. And here is the mind which had wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. This is not just revelation, this is discernment. Not everyone sees this clearly. This requires a different level of mind. Here is the mind which had wisdom. Mind equals perception, awareness, interpretation. Wisdom equals the ability to see beyond appearance. This means this level of understanding requires depth, awareness, and discernment. Not surface reading, but inner seeing. The 7 heads. 7 heads equals complete system of thought patterns. This represents the full structure of beliefs, the different ways of thinking that shaped your reality. 7 mountains. Mountains equals elevated beliefs, strongholds, foundational perspectives. These are the things you once stood on, what you believed was true, what you trusted, and what guided your life. On which the woman seated. The woman system of misalignment sits on these mountains. This means misalignment is built upon your beliefs. Illusion is sustained by your mindset. It doesn't exist on its own. It rests on what you believe. What this reveals: the system of misalignment is not random. It's not external. It is built on your thought patterns, your belief systems, and your perception of reality. The hard truth: if the foundation is not aligned, everything built on it will reflect that. Relationship example. You've already seen the patterns. Now you understand what they were built on. The mind with wisdom. You begin to ask, what did I believe about love? Mountains. Your beliefs may have been, love requires sacrifice. I have to endure to be loved. If I try harder, it will work. The woman sits. These beliefs allowed misaligned relationships, repeated patterns, and emotional attachment to what wasn't right. It wasn't just the relationship, it was the belief behind it. In career, you now see your career clearly, but deeper than that, you see what it was built on. The mind with success, the mind with wisdom. You begin to ask, what do I believe about work and success? Mountains. Your beliefs may have been, I should just be grateful. Stability is more important than fulfillment. This is all I can do. The woman sits. These beliefs supported misaligned choices, staying in limiting environment and undervaluing yourself. It wasn't just your situation, it was the foundation of your thinking. Spiritual example. You've already seen beyond surface level beliefs. Now you understand what those beliefs were built on. The mind with wisdom. You begin to ask, what shaped my understanding of truth? Mountains. Your foundations may have been external authority, fear-based interpretations, and unquestioned teachings. The woman sits. These beliefs allowed confusion, dependence, and disconnection from inner knowing. It wasn't just what you believed, it was the foundation that supported those beliefs. The core revelation. This verse reveals, misalignment is sustained by the beliefs you stand on. Change the foundation and the entire system collapses. Wisdom is not just seeing what is wrong. It is understanding what allowed it to exist. Because when you see the foundation, you gain the power to rebuild. Look deeper, not just at what happened, but at what you believed. Because your life is not just shaped by your actions. It is shaped by your foundation. And once you see it clearly, you can choose differently. Verse 10. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. This is not about literal kings. This is about phases of identity. Who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. 7 kings. Kings equals ruling identities, dominant mindsets. This means different versions of you have ruled your life at different times. 5 are fallen. This represents past identities, old versions of you, ways of thinking you've already outgrown. These are no longer in control. 1 is, this is your current identity, how you think now, how you see yourself now, how you are currently showing up. This is what is ruling your life in this moment. The other is not yet come. This represents your emerging self, the version of you you are becoming. You sense it, but you are not fully living from it yet. He must continue a short space. Your current identity is temporary. It is a transition point. You are not who you were, but you are not fully who you are becoming yet. What this reveals, you are in a space between past and future, old identity and new identity. The hard truth, growth includes in-between seasons. Relationship example, you've outgrown old relationship patterns. 5 are falling. You no longer tolerate what you used to, chase what you used to, attach the same way. 1 is, currently you are more aware. You have boundaries. You see clearly, but you are still refining how you show up. Not yet come. You sense a version of yourself that loves without fear, chooses with full alignment, and does not second guess. Short space. This in-between phase won't last forever. You are transitioning. You are not lost. You are evolving. In career, you've outgrown previous career identities. 5 are falling. You no longer see yourself the same way. Accept the same limitations and operate from the same mindset. 1 is, currently, you are aware of your value. You are exploring your path. You are shifting direction. Not yet come. You sense a version of you that fully embodies your potential, operates with confidence, and moves with clarity. Short space. This phase is temporary. You are transitioning. You are becoming. Uncertainty is often the space of transformation. Spiritual example. You've moved beyond old beliefs. 5 are falling. You no longer believe what you once did. Depend on what you once did. See things the same way. 1 is, currently, you are grounded in deeper understanding. You trust your inner knowing. Not yet come. You sense a deeper level where you live truth effortlessly. You are fully aligned. There is no inner conflict. Short space. You are in the process of integration and embodiment. You are becoming what you already see. The core revelation. This verse reveals the journey of identity. Past selves fall away. The present self transitions and the future self emerges. Do not rush the process. There is wisdom in the in-between. You are not who you were, and you are not fully who you will be, but you are becoming. Honor where you are, even if it feels incomplete, because this space is not confusion, it is transformation. Verse 11, and the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. This is not a new identity. This is the final echo of the old one. Just when you think it's over, something familiar tries to reappear in a new form. The beast that was and is not. Beast equals old identity, conditioned pattern. This means it's used to control you. It no longer does. You've already seen it and outgrown it. Even he is the 8th. 8 equals new beginning, new cycle. The old pattern tries to re-enter your life, but appear as something new. It looks different, but it comes from the same root. And it's of the 7. This means it is still connected to your past identities. It comes from what you've already experienced. It's not truly new, it's familiar in disguise. And goeth into perdition. Perdition equals final destruction, complete end. This is key. This reappearance is not to restart the cycle, it is to end it completely. What this reveals, after growth, old patterns may reappear one last time, not to pull you back, but to confirm you are truly free. The hard truth, the final test often looks like something you've already overcome. Relationship example, you've already ended the cycle, grown and moved on. The beast was and is not. That version of you is gone. The eighth appears. Then suddenly, a new person comes into your life. But something feels very familiar. Of the seven, you recognize similar traits, similar dynamics, similar emotional pool. The moment of truth. This is not coincidence. It's the same pattern in a different form. You are not being tested to fail. You are being given a chance to choose differently. In career, you've outgrown old environments. Was and is not. That mindset is no longer who you are. The eighth appears. Then a new opportunity shows up. It looks exciting and promising. Of the seven, but beneath it, same limitations, same structure, same misalignment. The moment of truth. It's not a new path. It's a familiar one in disguise. Discernment is recognizing patterns beyond appearance. Spiritual example. You've moved beyond old beliefs. Was and is not. You no longer think the same way. The eighth appears, then a new idea, a new teaching, a new influence shows up. Of the seven, but you notice it carries the same limitations. It creates the same dependence. It feels familiar in structure. The moment of truth. It's not new truth. It's the same pattern in a new form. True growth requires deeper discernment, not just surface level change. The core revelation. This verse reveals old patterns may reappear in new forms, but only to be recognized and released completely. The final stage of freedom is not just leaving the old behind, it is recognizing it, even when it returns disguised as something new. Not everything new is truly new, and not everything that returns is meant to stay. Sometimes it comes back, so you can finally let it go completely. Verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. This is not about lasting power. This is about temporary influence. Not everything that feels powerful is established. 10 horns, 10 kings. Horns equals expressions of power, influence. Kings equals ruling thoughts, dominant drives. This represents multiple influences, multiple edges, multiple voices that try to take control. Have received no kingdom as yet. Kingdom equals true authority, established foundation. These influences feel strong. They feel convincing, but they are not rooted, not established, not truly aligned. Receive power 1 hour. 1 hour equals short time, temporary moment. This means these influences rise quickly, feel intense, but don't last. They only have power if you respond to them. With the beast, beast equals old identity, conditioned patterns. This is key. These temporary influences are connected to your past patterns and fooled by your old identity. They only exist because something old still tries to speak. What this reveals: not every thought, not every urge, not every opportunity deserves authority. The hard truth: temporary feelings can look like permanent truth. Relationship example: you've already grown, moved on, and chosen alignment. 10 kings. Then suddenly, emotions rise. Attraction appears. Curiosity returns. No kingdom. These feelings seem strong, but they are not grounded, aligned, and sustainable. 1R. They are temporary, situational, and fleeting. With the beast, they are connected to old patterns and familiar emotional triggers. Not every feeling deserves a response. In career, you've already aligned with a new direction. 10 kings. Then multiple options appear. Quick opportunities arise. Distractions come in different forms. No kingdom. They look good and promising, but they lack depth, alignment, and long-term value. 1R. They are short-term, temporary, and not built to last. With the beast, they connect to your old mindset and your previous way of operating. Not every opportunity is your path. Spiritual example: you've grounded yourself in deeper understanding. 10 kings. Then different ideas, new interpretations, strong opinions begin to appear. No kingdom. They sound confident and convincing, but they lack true depth and inner alignment. 1R. They are temporary, passing, and not rooted in truth. With the beast, they connect to old ways of thinking and previous conditioning. Not every voice carries truth. The core revelation: this verse reveals many influences may feel powerful, but they are temporary and only have authority if you give it to them. Power is not measured by intensity. It is measured by alignment. Because what is truly aligned does not come and go. Not everything that feels strong is meant to lead you. Not everything that rises is meant to stay. Pause, observe, and remember: temporary influence is not true authority. Verse 13. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. This is not confusion. This is alignment of influence. All those temporary voices, all those fleeting urges now come together with one intention. These have one mind. This equals the influences from the previous verse. One mind equals unified direction, singular focus. This means what once appeared as many different voices now moves as one force. Not random anymore, but coordinated. Give their power and strength. Power equals attention, agreement. Strength equals energy, action. This is key. These influences don't have power on their own. They gain power when you entertain them, when you agree with them, when you act on them. Onto the beast. Beast equals old identity, conditioned patterns. This means all these influences are working together to pull you back into your old self, restore old patterns, and re-establish what you've outgrown. What this reveals: at this stage, the pull backward becomes stronger and more unified. The hard truth: regression is not always random. Sometimes it is reinforced from multiple directions at once. Relationship example: You've already moved on, healed, and gained clarity. One mind. Now everything seems to align against your growth. Memories resurface, emotions intensify, depression may even return, loneliness may show up. Power and strength. If you entertain the thoughts, replay the memories, respond emotionally, you begin to give it power again. Onto the beast. This pulls you back into old attachment, old emotional patterns, and old cycles. It's not just one thing pulling you back, it's multiple influences working together. In career, you've already outgrown your old path, aligned with something higher. One mind. Then fear of failure, financial pressure, comfort of the old, external opinions all show up at once. Power and strength. If you focus on fear, listen to doubt, prioritize comfort, you give those influences authority. Onto the beast. This pulls you back into your old mindset and your previous limitations. When multiple fears align, it feels like truth, but it's not. Spiritual example. You've already seen truth, stepped into deeper awareness. One mind. Then doubt, fear, old teachings, external voices all come together. Power and strength. If you entertain the doubt, fear being wrong, and seek external validation, you give it power. Onto the beast. This pulls you back into old belief systems, dependence, and confusion. Not all agreement is truth. Sometimes it is coordinated resistance. The core revelation. This verse reveals when multiple influences align to pull you back into old patterns, but they only succeed if you give them your attention and energy. The strongest pull backward is not one voice. It is many voices speaking at once, but even then, they still require your agreement, your attention, and your action. When everything seems to push you back, pause. Because the question is not why is this happening? The question is, what am I giving my power to? Because whatever you give power to becomes your direction. Verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. These shall make war with the Lamb. War symbolizes inner conflict, resistance, the struggle between illusion and awakening, and ego resisting truth. The Lamb symbolizes awakened innocence, higher consciousness, truth beyond ego and violence, divine awareness expressed peacefully. Meaning, distorted consciousness resists awakened truth. This happens constantly in human experience. Whenever truth begins awakening within, ego resists. Old identity structures fight back. Fear reacts. Illusion tries to survive. This is the war. Relationship example. Someone healing emotionally may begin setting boundaries, valuing themselves, and becoming emotionally conscious. But old patterns within them, or even people around them, may resist the change. For example, a toxic partner may become angry once manipulation no longer works. Emotional conflict increases because awakened self-worth threatens old unhealthy dynamics. That is war against the Lamb symbolically. The old consciousness resists transformation. And the Lamb shall overcome them. This is profound because the Lamb does not overcome through violence. The Lamb symbolizes truth, awareness, innocence, and awakened consciousness. Meaning, Truth ultimately exposes and dissolves illusion, not through domination, but through illumination. Darkness does not overpower light. Light reveals darkness. Similarly, awakened awareness exposes fear. Clarity dissolves confusion. Consciousness sees through illusion. That is how the Lamb overcomes. Career example. Someone awakening professionally may begin realizing burnout is unhealthy. Their worth is not tied only to productivity. They no longer want toxic work culture, but old conditioning fights back. Fear of failure appears. Ego fears losing status. External validation pulls at consciousness. That is war with the Lamb. But eventually, truth prevails inwardly. Authentic alignment becomes stronger than fear. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings. Lord symbolizes governing principles, ruling consciousness. King symbolizes authority, what governs the inner world. Meaning, awakened truth is higher than every egoic identity structure ruling consciousness. Ego creates many lords. Fear becomes a lord. Money becomes a lord. Validation becomes a lord. Religion becomes a lord. Status becomes a lord. Ego becomes a lord. But awakened awareness rises above them all. That is why the Lamb is Lord of Lords. Religion example. Someone raised in fear-based religion may begin awakening into peace, symbolic understanding, and inner coherence. But their inherited fear fights back. Guilt appears. External voices condemn them. Old doctrines resist transformation. That is war with the Lamb. But eventually, awakened awareness overcomes fear-based conditioning. They that are with him. This symbolizes consciousness aligned with truth. Inner awareness walking in awakening. Those participating in awakened life. Meaning, consciousness aligned with truth moves with awakened awareness rather than illusion. Called. Called symbolizes awakening invitation. Inner recognition. Consciousness becoming aware that deeper truth exists. Many feel this inwardly. They feel there must be more. Something isn't fully aligning. I need deeper truth. That is the calling. Chosen. Chosen symbolically does not mean elitism or exclusive favoritism. It symbolizes consciousness consciously aligning with awakening. Meaning, awakened awareness is chosen inwardly through receptivity and alignment. Faithful. Faithful symbolizes remaining aligned with truth, integrity toward awakening, and consistency in consciousness transformation. Meaning, awakened consciousness remains committed to truth even when illusion resists. What this reveals? This verse reveals awakening creates inner conflict as egoic illusion resists transformation. But awakened truth ultimately overcomes distorted consciousness through illumination, alignment, and faithful awareness. The verse reveals the Lamb symbolizes awakened truth within consciousness overcoming fear, ego, illusion, and distorted identity structures as awareness aligns faithfully with higher truth and inner transformation. One of the deepest truths about awakening is realizing the greatest battles are often internal. The struggle between truth and illusion, awareness and unconsciousness, healing and old identity, peace and egoic fear. And perhaps that is why Revelation describes a war with the Lamb. Because awakening itself challenges every false structure consciousness once used for identity, safety, and control. But in the end, the Lamb overcomes, not through force, but through the quiet power of truth, illuminating everything illusion tried to hide. Verse 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse seated, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. This verse is extremely important because Revelation now explains one of its own symbols directly. The waters are interpreted symbolically as peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. This immediately shows us Revelation is layered symbolic language. The waters are not merely physical oceans. They symbolize collective consciousness, masses of humanity, emotional and psychological currents flowing through people collectively. The waters. Throughout scripture, waters often symbolize emotions, the subconscious, masses of consciousness, and unstable human awareness. Remember earlier in Revelation, the beast rose from the sea, meaning distorted systems and egoic structures rise from collective unconsciousness. Now, Revelation confirms the waters represent peoples and multitudes. Consciousness is contagious. Human beings influence one another emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Fear spreads, anger spreads, trends spread, ideology spread, awakening spreads, peace spreads. The waters symbolize the collective flow of human consciousness. Where the horse sitteth. The horse symbolizes Babylon consciousness, seduction through illusion, intoxication by ego, attachment to external identity. To sit upon the water symbolizes influence over collective consciousness, meaning distorted systems gain power through collective emotional and psychological attachment. Babylon exists through collective agreement. Babylon consciousness survives because people collectively feed it. Fear systems, status systems, validation systems, manipulative religion, consumerism, division consciousness, all are strengthened through collective participation. Relationship example. A toxic relationship dynamic can spread emotionally between two people. For example, insecurity, manipulation, emotional chaos can begin influencing communication, perception, reactions, and identity. Soon, both people are emotionally sitting upon the waters, immersed in unstable emotional consciousness. But healing begins when awareness interrupts the emotional current. Career example. In workplaces, collective consciousness is powerful. A toxic work environment can normalize burnout, fear, ego competition, and performative behavior. People unconsciously absorb the emotional atmosphere around them. That is the waters. Babylon consciousness often operates collectively through group conditioning. Peoples, multitudes, nations, tongues. This symbolizes all layers of humanity, diverse expressions of collective consciousness, widespread psychological influence, meaning distorted consciousness patterns are universal human struggles, not limited to one group or nation. This makes Revelation universal. Revelation is not merely about one government, one ethnicity, or one time period. It is describing universal consciousness patterns humanity cycles repeatedly. Religion example. Fear-based religion often spreads through collective emotional conditioning. People may inherit fear, shame, spiritual hierarchy, and question beliefs, simply because the collective environment normalized it. That is the what is. But awakening begins when consciousness starts questioning, when awareness rises above collective fear. What this reveals? This verse reveals collective human consciousness carries emotional, psychological, and spiritual currents through which distorted systems, egoic illusion, and Babylon consciousness influence humanity collectively. This verse reveals the waters symbolize collective human consciousness through which fear, ego, illusion, and distorted systems spread emotionally and psychologically across humanity until awareness awakens beyond collective unconsciousness. One of the deepest truths about awakening is realizing consciousness is deeply influenced by collective environments. Fear spreads collectively, ego spreads collectively, illusion spreads collectively, but so does healing, awareness, peace, and awakened understanding. And perhaps that is why Revelation places Babylon upon the waters. Because distorted consciousness gains power. Whenever humanity collectively feeds illusion without awareness of what is governing the inner world. Verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This verse sounds violent and frightening when read literally. But symbolically, Revelation is describing the collapse of illusion from within itself. This is deeply profound because Babylon consciousness eventually destroys itself through its own contradictions, exposes its own emptiness, collapses under the weight of ego, greed, fear, and distortion. That is what Jezebel is about. That's why she was pushed down and dogs ate her. It's a pattern. The system that once supported illusion eventually turned against it. The 10 horns. Horns symbolize power, authority, ruling influences, expressions of strength within consciousness. The number 10 often symbolizes fullness, completion of a cycle, meaning the full structure of egoic power systems. Upon the beast. The beast symbolizes distorted collective consciousness, egoic systems, unconscious identity structures, and fear-based power, meaning these powers operate within Babylon consciousness itself. The important revelation here. The important revelation here. The same system that supported Babylon eventually destroys Babylon. This mirrors real life deeply. These shall hate the whore. The whore symbolizes seduction through illusion, intoxication by ego, attachment to external identity, false fulfillment consciousness. To hate the whore symbolizes illusion turning against itself, emptiness becoming exposed, false systems collapsing internally. Ego eventually devours itself. Ego-based systems cannot sustain peace long term because greed fights greed, pride fights pride, fear creates instability, false identity becomes exhausting. Eventually, the illusion begins collapsing inwardly. Relationship example. A relationship built entirely on performance, manipulation, insecurity, and ego validation eventually begins collapsing under its own dysfunction. What once looked glamorous, exciting, and powerful becomes emotionally draining, unstable, and destructive. The illusion exposes itself. That is Babylon burning from within. Shall make her desolate and naked. Desolate symbolizes emptiness, collapse, Laws of illusion's power. Naked symbolizes exposure, nothing hidden, truth revealing what was underneath, meaning distorted consciousness eventually becomes fully exposed. Revelation constantly uses nakedness symbolically. Nakedness symbolizes true inner conditioning becoming visible. Babylon looked rich, beautiful, and powerful, but underneath was emptiness, fear, and illusion. Eventually, consciousness sees through the performance. Career example. Someone may build identity entirely around status, achievement, image, and competition. Externally, everything looks successful, but inwardly, burnout grows. Emptiness increases, anxiety deepens. Eventually, the illusion collapses. Consciousness realizes external success alone cannot sustain inner peace. Babylon becomes desolate and naked. Eat her flesh. Flesh symbolizes external identity, egoic attachment, temporary self-concept. To eat her flesh symbolizes self-consuming consciousness, illusion feeding upon itself destructively, meaning egoic systems eventually consume themselves internally. Burn her with fire. Fire symbolizes purification, exposure, transformation through dissolving illusion, meaning illusion collapses through the revealing fire of awakened awareness. Fire reveals what is real, anything false, performance, ego identity, illusion, fear structures cannot remain stable under awakened truth. Religion example. Fear-based religion sometimes eventually collapses under hypocrisy being exposed, contradictions becoming visible, manipulation being recognized, consciousness awakening beyond fear. The very systems once defended fiercely begin losing influence because people start seeing clearly. That is Babylon exposed and burned. What this reveals? This verse reveals egoic and illusion-based systems eventually collapse under their own contradictions as truth exposes the emptiness, instability, and inner fragmentation hidden beneath external appearances. Babylon consciousness ultimately destroys itself from within as awakened awareness exposes illusion, false identity, egoic structures, and externalized systems that cannot sustain authentic inner life and truth. One of the deepest truths about awakening is realizing illusion eventually collapses under its own weight. Anything built entirely on ego, performance, fear, false fulfillment, and domination cannot sustain true peace and wholeness. Eventually, truth exposes it. Consciousness sees through it. The performance loses its power. And perhaps that is why Babylon is destroyed by the very forces that once carried her. Because distorted consciousness eventually becomes consumed by the instability and emptiness hidden within illusion itself. Verse 17, for God had put in their heart to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God should be fulfilled. This verse can sound very confusing if read literally, because people ask, why would God put it in their hearts to give power to the beast? But symbolically, Revelation is revealing something much deeper. Consciousness itself eventually exposes the consequences of illusion completely until awakening becomes unavoidable. This is not God forcing evil behavior. It is consciousness being allowed to fully reveal what ego, fear, and illusion produce when followed to their conclusion. God had put in their hearts. Heart symbolizes inner consciousness, desires, motivations, the governing center within. God symbolically represents ultimate reality, truth, the deeper order of consciousness, the unfolding of awareness itself. Meaning, reality itself allows consciousness to experience the full consequences of alignment with illusion until truth becomes visible. This mirrors human experience deeply. People often must fully experience certain patterns before awakening from them. Sometimes, consciousness clings to ego, status, toxic relationships, escapism, and false identity until eventually suffering exposes the illusion. That is not divine cruelty. It is consciousness learning through experience. To agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. Kingdom symbolizes what governs consciousness. Inner rulership, where energy and devotion are directed. The beast symbolizes egoic systems, distorted consciousness, fear-based identity structures. To give their kingdom symbolizes surrendering inner authority to illusion. Meaning, consciousness allows ego, fear, status, and illusion to rule the inner world. People give their kingdom away constantly. Someone can give their kingdom to money, validation, toxic relationships, fear, external image, addictions, and societal expectations. Meaning, consciousness becomes governed by externalized illusion instead of awakened awareness. Relationship example. Someone may repeatedly ignore red flags, emotional manipulation, and unhealthy dynamics because fear of loneliness, attachment, validation needs have become the ruling force within consciousness. They give their kingdom away emotionally. Eventually, the pain becomes so clear that awakening begins. The illusion reveals itself through experience. To agree. Agreement symbolizes collective participation, unconscious alignment, shared attachment to illusion. Babylon survives because collective consciousness agrees to sustain it. Collective illusion requires participation. Fear systems survive through agreement. Ego systems survive through agreement. Manipulative systems survive through collective participation. Once consciousness withdraws agreement, the illusion weakens. Career example. Someone may surrender their entire identity to career status, achievement, external success. For years, the beast rules consciousness. But eventually, burnout, emptiness, anxiety force deeper reflection. The illusion eventually exposes itself. Until the words of God shall be fulfilled. The words of God symbolize ultimate truth, reality unfolding, awakened consciousness eventually emerging. Fulfilled symbolizes completion, truth becoming undeniable, illusion reaching its limit. Meaning, distorted consciousness can only sustain itself temporarily before truth ultimately reveals itself. Illusion cannot last forever. Ego can dominate temporarily. Fear can dominate temporarily. Babylon can dominate temporarily. But truth eventually exposes illusion. Awareness eventually awakens. Consciousness eventually seeks wholeness again. Religion example. Many people stay for years in fear-based religion, shame systems, spiritual hierarchy, inherited doctrines. But eventually, contradictions appear. Inner questioning begins. Consciousness seeks coherence and peace. The illusion eventually reveals itself fully. This verse reveals consciousness is often allowed to fully experience egoic illusion and distorted systems unto truth. Awareness and awakening naturally expose the limitations and suffering produced by unconscious alignment. Humanity repeatedly surrenders inner authority to egoic and illusion-based systems until awakened awareness eventually exposes the consequences of distorted consciousness and restores alignment with truth. One of the deepest truths about awakening is realizing consciousness often learns through experience. Sometimes illusion must fully reveal its emptiness before awareness truly awakens beyond it. People may surrender themselves for years to ego, status, fear, false identity, and unhealthy systems, but eventually the soul grows weary. The illusion cracks, truth begins emerging beneath the performance. And perhaps that is what Revelation is revealing here. That distorted consciousness can only rule temporarily before awareness eventually awakens and truth fulfills itself within the soul. Verse 18. And the woman whom thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Now, Revelation removes even more mystery from the symbolism. The woman is identified as that great city. This is deeply important because the woman was never literal. She symbolizes a system of consciousness, collective identity, an inner civilization built upon illusion and externalized power. This city is Babylon consciousness. The woman. Throughout Revelation, the woman symbolizes consciousness, the soul, receptivity, what consciousness becomes united with inwardly. Earlier, we saw the bride, New Jerusalem, representing awakened consciousness. Now we see the harlot, Babylon, representing distorted consciousness. This is a contrast between awakened inner reality versus illusion-based consciousness. Two women, two consciousness states. Revelation presents the bride, truth, alignment, awakened life, and the harlot, illusion, ego intoxication, external identity systems, both are symbolic consciousness patterns. That great city. A city symbolizes a structured consciousness system, collective identity, organized ways of living and thinking. Babylon is called a great city because distorted consciousness becomes deeply established collectively, meaning egoic systems can become entire ways of life internally and externally. Cities symbolize inner civilizations. People build entire lives around money, status, appearance, fear, competition, pleasure, and validation. That becomes an inner Babylon, a whole identity structure, which reigned over the kings of the earth. Kings symbolize ruling powers, governing principles, what controls consciousness. The earth symbolizes human consciousness in manifested life, grounded human experience, meaning Babylon consciousness influences the ruling forces within human life and society. Babylon rules through influence. Babylon doesn't always rule through force alone. It rules through seduction, ego appeal, external validation, fear, and identity attachment. People willingly surrender consciousness to it. Relationship example. Someone may build their entire identity around being desired. Relationship validation, fear of abandonment, and appearing perfect externally. Eventually, their emotional world becomes ruled by external approval. That is Babylon reigning inwardly. Healing begins when consciousness no longer builds identity entirely on external validation. Career example. Someone may become completely consumed by achievement, professional image, success, and competition. Externally, everything appears successfully. Internally, peace disappears. Anxiety grows. Burnout develops. Babylon has become the ruling city within consciousness. Religion example. Fear-based religion can also become Babylon consciousness, where guilt rules. Fear dominates. Hierarchy controls. Appearance matters more than transformation. The system reigns over consciousness through emotional control instead of awakened awareness. The contrast with New Jerusalem. Babylon, externalized identity, intoxication, ego systems, fear. New Jerusalem, awakened consciousness, living awareness, illumination, direct alignment with truth. One is built on illusion, the other built on awakened awareness. What this reveals? This verse reveals Babylon symbolizes an organized system of distorted consciousness built upon ego, fear, external identity, and illusion that collectively influences and governs human awareness and behavior. The Harlot city symbolizes collective consciousness structured around illusion, ego, fear, and externalized identity systems that rule human life until awakening restores consciousness into truth and inner wholeness. One of the deepest truths about awakening is realizing Babylon is not somewhere outside of us. It is any inner system built entirely upon ego, performance, fear, false fulfillment, and external validation. People can live inside Babylon psychologically for years while appearing successful outwardly. But eventually, the soul becomes exhausted. The illusion cracks. Awareness begins seeking something real. And perhaps that is why Revelation contrasts Babylon with New Jerusalem. Because consciousness must eventually choose between a life built upon illusion and a life restored through awakened truth, peace, and inner wholeness. The chapter is complete. Thanks for being here. I will see you in the next teaching.